Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us today. It's Wednesday. What a day it is today. What a day to be here to talk Notre Dame football. Can't wait to get it going. It's Mailbag Day. We've got a lot of questions from the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge that have been submitted. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can submit your questions there. And if you're listening on the radio, well, when you go home, just pop in the YouTube, either at Irish Breakdown or Sports Radio WSBT. If you have questions, pop them in there. You can always throw them in advance. I'm Sean Stiers, joined by Jesse Stiers. We teased yesterday that the one and only Vince D'Addario might be back today after his status was upgraded to questionable. He tried to make some moves in the kitchen, I believe, yesterday after his procedure last week, and he's not quite there yet. So Vince remains questionable with an outlook of questionable / hopeful for Friday's show. That's where we are, but we're glad that Jesse is here today. How are you today, sir?
I don't know if everyone is glad, but I'm here.
There's one thing you've got to know in this occupation: you cannot please everybody. There will always be someone who disagrees, no matter what you do. So,
have you brought up our radio listener that does not like the whiteboard?
You must have missed Friday. We played the call on Fridays.
Oh no, you played the call.
You'll have to go back and listen. Yeah,
that's pretty funny. I do need to go back and listen. No, but it's a very dreary and rainy day out here. Just cycling
what it was
through
yesterday
rain.
Here. Yeah.
But the crazy thing is like it feels good outside. And I went into the office today, and the office was like 76 degrees. And I was like, "What is going on in here right now?" And so it felt worse to be inside than it did outside. And I was not happy about that. But luckily at my desk, I have like this not industrial, but I have like this mini fan that blows on me, and I just cranked that bad boy up all day. So I can't complain.
I thought I had it bad in this studio. This studio is like it runs pretty cold in here. So there are times like I'm probably going to need to start bringing a sweatshirt and throwing it in the cabinet. But I'm sure what's going to happen is as soon as it actually turns cold outside, it'll probably get hot.
Yes.
Here. So
do you want to hear the best part about my day though?
Sure.
So I ordered this really cool, you can't really see all of it. It's like a Notre Dame rain jacket, zip up. It's like a lightweight jacket.
Yeah.
Just says Irish on the front, and then it's got like the Under Armour logo on the sleeve. I ordered this like during the national championship or after the national championship last season. It went on sale, and I ordered it, and it came here. I was super excited for it, and it didn't fit. It like did not fit. I could hardly get it zipped or anything like that. But today I was feeling good, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to give this bad boy a zip up. And sure enough, it zips right up. So
that's all good. All that wedding training has paid off. You've got the Notre Dame jacket on that you haven't been able to wear for the last 9 months.
Correct. 50 pounds and counting. So I guess.
Well done.
I guess the jacket is a little bit of a reward. But to me, that's like the best feeling is when you put on some clothes and you feel disappointed. You look disappointed. And then, you put in all the hard work and now it's like, and you know me, like I love my clothes, my shoes, all that stuff. So like when stuff started not to fit a little bit, I was getting real upset. But now I have my full closet at my disposal.
Corey says water weight, 50 pounds, 50 plus pounds of water weight, sheer water weight. He just jumped in the sauna.
Well, the issue is I've also put back on a lot of good muscle too. So it's like, where's that balance of. Have
you got the slider pose from Top Gun Beach Volleyball? When he did the size pose down, slider with the sweatpants on, but no shirt up top. Wandong wants to know how volleyball went last night. Well, they won, so they're playing again tonight, right?
Yeah. So I'll be here for the first hour tonight. Someone will relieve me for rapid fire, but we are in the championship this evening.
Trevor will be in for the second hour of the show tonight. We'll see if it's rapid fire or if it's mailbag stuff. Submit your questions in the mailbag, your Notre Dame football questions. We've got plenty ready to go. And if I give you one guess as to what the theme of the questions that have come in so far, what would you say?
Let me see. Defense, maybe. I don't know.
On the nose, but we're going to start with a question from Joe on the offense. Joe asks, if you were Mike Denbrock, would you do a similar play like last week to start off the game on offense, or do you change it up? Do you think Arkansas would be looking for it? So, of course, they went play action, deep post to Malachi Fields to open up the game last week. What's your call this week, Jesse?
I think this is a good question. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Notre Dame could run just about whatever, and their scripted, their first kind of 10, 15 scripted plays, and hopefully have a good amount of success. But when you start off a game like that last week, I think like the defensive coordinator for Arkansas is going to be, hey guys, like we can't just expect run every play, because here's prime example of what could happen type situation. So I think Arkansas will be ready for it. I've seen what Arkansas has done against the run game. They've given up a lot of rushing yards. I have no problem with them just pounding the rock to start the game. And basically, it's an 11 a.m. game on the road, SEC country. Why not just go full, control of the game, pound the rock, have a really nice long opening drive, take some clock, and run the ball. So I like the idea of starting off early with the run and then maybe opening up to some seam patterns as the drive goes on.
Yeah, do you like anything misdirection wise, or whether it's reverse or something like that on the first play, or just
maybe like a jet sweep to Faison coming around the corner?
Wouldn't mind seeing that. How about a slot fade to Jaden Greathouse? Like that's something that you haven't shown so far. They haven't run really. If they have used that play like that was like a Denbrock favorite coming here, was that slot fade, and we saw a good deal of it last year. We really haven't seen it that much through 3 games this year, and obviously Jaden Greathouse as the primary slot hasn't been involved in the offense. I think that maybe that could be something that you could start off with, because again, you haven't shown it so far.
So do you think the offense is going to kind of like continue to unlock layers? Do you think we're going to see kind of new wrinkles kind of added every week, basically?
I do, and I think that it does kind of depend on the increasing comfort that Denbrock and CJ Carr have in different things. Obviously, they get to try things in practice, and if certain plays aren't working in practice, especially if they result in turnovers, then you do something else. Like it's like, okay, we'll leave that play over here for now. But I think we're definitely going to continue to see. Look, like we said the other day, the biggest thing that pass to Malachi Fields on the first play of the game, and then you can add the deep pass to Faison that was a touchdown last week as well. The biggest thing those two things do, whether it's the first play or not, is now defenses have to respect that deep ball, because they know that you can run.
Yeah, you can't just load the box.
Right. They have now opened up the entire field for the remainder of the season, unless teams really feel like they can just sit down and take away your running game, and they think that they've got the safeties to keep up as well. But I think it just opens the whole thing up. We're going to see more deep shots. I'm very confident of that. Might not be on the first play of the game, but we're going to see more deep shots from this offense, a lot more deep shots from this offense. But we're also, to your point, Jesse, Arkansas, not a great run defense team. They're giving up around 140, almost 150 rushing yards per game. That's a considerable chunk. Now, they obviously played Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago. They played Memphis last week. But when you look at who they played in their first 2 games, we're talking about FCS level teams, and they're giving up an average of that much per game. Notre Dame's going to look to have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price heavily involved in the game plan this week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, considering they combined for like 7 touchdowns last week, I think that's And I still think that I still think that teams are going to err on the side of loading the box and still making CJ Carr kind of beat them over the top because, I mean, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love have shown no signs of regression. Like every week they continue just to put the pressure on the opposing team. So, I would like the first play to be a run, but if the numbers don't say so, then again, let's not just jam a run for no reason. Let's check into something and maybe get a play action to Raritan up the seam type situation. But I don't know. I feel like this game screams this is like a Marcus Freeman special coming this week. Run the ball. Let's not turn the ball over. Let's not get ourselves in a hole early. Let's control the clock.
Let's rally the troops time, you think? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. I wish I was a domer in the YouTube chat, says Sam Pittman, of course, the Arkansas coach, says he feels good about how they, Arkansas, match up against Notre Dame's defense. Do you think Notre Dame will take that personally?
I hope they've been taking it personally ever since week one. I think anyone would match up or should feel good about how
I'm watching film. I've got to feel like if I don't feel like I match up against Notre Dame's defense, I think that I've got big issues, right? No matter who the opponent is.
Right. I think no matter what, they should feel good about what their chances of scoring some points against Notre Dame. And to be honest with you, I think that Notre Dame's defense does have something to prove, especially after their head coach, has been kind of like if Marcus Freeman has been so passionate and pounding the tables during press conferences, what do you think he's been like behind closed doors talking to his team? Like I am very, very certain that his point has been made this week.
We know that he can be a very intense guy when he wants to be. And if there's a time to be intense, this is it right now. Like with what Notre Dame has gone through, with what the defense has gone through and what they've shown so far. I mean, as a team with pride that came into this season with, big expectations, I would hope that you take everything personally. Like, I would think that they took the Texas A&M loss personally, but they played well enough to win against Purdue, but that's still largely due to the fact that the offense gave them 49 points, and they got another 7 from Jadarian Price on the kickoff return. So,
I'm still upset that this thing is kicking at 11 preseason. How did we go? Notre Dame and Arkansas. Let's kick that game off at 11 a.m. on a Saturday.
Well, CBS has got to get some games too. I guess. No, it's not CBS. It's ABC.
Oh boy, this looks like a chunky question.
It is. So I've got some thoughts on this. Can you read that handle? This is one of those handles that's just a bunch of Shakar. I don't know. He says one thing, or he or she says one thing I'm confused about is how Freeman could have been surprised by the defense switching attitude after fall camp. How involved would a head coach typically be in approving a defensive coordinator's install package in the days leading up to Miami or A&M or Purdue, and how much of the off-coverage plans would be presented to the head coach as part of that install? Why are these issues apparently catching everybody off guard only when the ball is snapped on Saturday itself? Or is Freeman part of the coalition that expects off coverage to work the whole time? So
I think we got to take this line by line.
Yeah, well, and here's kind of the setup to this. Like things I've heard, things we've heard say that during fall camp, Notre Dame was not running the the defensive, like the off coverage, like doing all this stuff that they're doing right now that we've seen in these first 3 games. That's not what they were doing during fall camp. And then apparently camp ends, like after the quarterback competition, and now you're in prep for Miami. And this is what they're running now is what they started running at that point. It seems very confusing to me that if this was the kind of defense you planned on running all along, that you didn't spend any time doing it during fall training camp. And even like going back to last spring in the limited opportunities that we had whether it was the spring game or the couple practices that we got to see where they were actually doing live stuff. We never saw them doing this kind of stuff. So it is fairly surprising. Also, with that as kind of your base and your background, Jesse, your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, so like that's a big chunk of information. I hadn't really heard that, to be honest with you. So what you're saying is just to kind of recap that they practiced one defense all camp, and then when game week came, they started mixing in these different looks and kind of straying away from, I guess their base defense. The first thing that I would say is I would be surprised too if I was Marcus Freeman about, the switch up. And I think the attitude after fall camp would be, from the player side of things, is why are we switching all these things up? And then when it didn't work versus Miami, why are we still doubling down on it? And I think that's where Marcus Freeman has started to really talk in about the buy-in, is because I'm sure players are like, well, why are we doing this when it's not working? And clearly we've run something all of fall camp that had a lot of success against our good offense. Like this offense is no slouch at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. And again, like go back to last year, like when Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash, when they talk about we're running the Notre Dame defense, again, the playbook might be the Notre Dame defense, but the concepts you're doing, the things you're doing look a lot different than anything that we become accustomed to seeing with the Notre Dame defense over the past couple of years. So it is confusing, but again, how much of the sign off on this? I mean, surely Marcus Freeman knows what his defensive coordinator's game plans are. Surely he's part of those meetings, when they're talking about what they're going to do. It just, and so now, like when you talk about buy-in, whose buy-in do you need? Do you need the players to buy into the system more, the players and or the position coaches, the assistant coaches, or do you need more buy-in from the other side, from the defensive coordinator who's putting all these game plans together and wanting to obviously run these concepts? Like, do you need more buy-in from him to say, look, this is not working, we've got to shift our philosophy in another direction? Like, it feels obvious to everyone who's watching this thing, but it doesn't feel obvious, like with what we're seeing on Saturdays and the feedback that we're getting in these press conferences, does it?
No, and I think the part that's the most confusing is what made you all of a sudden be like, okay, here's what we need to do, right? Like what are you analyzing? What are you studying? Those sort of things. And why is it so complex that we just see all these broken coverages at the end of the day?
And guys scrambling pre-snap, trying to figure out, there's just too much if this, then this. And, guys not knowing even where they're supposed to be lined up, and confusion before the snap and all these different things that we're just not used to seeing. And quite frankly, it's one thing to see them in the first game and a half, but you would think a lot of that stuff would be cleaned up by game 3 if it was a concept that you really genuinely should be running, that you think can be successful. Because these are not practice games. They all count. They all count for your record, so it's baffling that this is potentially what's going on.
Yeah, so like moving into the second part of this question, how involved would a head coach typically be? It's like, I mean, yeah, he knows what's going on, but it's not like Chris Ash doesn't have to run everything by Marcus Freeman. It's not like he needs to go, hey, Dad, can I do this? At the end of the day, it's more or less Chris Ash being, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the thought philosophy. Here's what I want to do. Boom, let's go. And Marcus Freeman being someone who's smart, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think where the disconnect is happening is everything looks good, sounds good on paper, but then when they go to draw it up and the execution part of it, it's just not happening.
Execution's not there, as we've heard again and again and again, right?
Yeah, it's just not there. So at what point do you just say, hey, man, like, yeah, that sounds good on paper, but our guys need to focus on what they do best? And I think
which
we're at that
like,
kind of tipping point right
yeah.
now.
And it seemed like we saw more of that in that second half against Purdue. Now, again, it's different when you do have a big lead and all that kind of stuff, and you can just pin back your ears and get
Well, it's
after it.
not like Purdue was running the ball a lot in the first half. Their whole
Right.
offense was passing the ball. So it's like,
Right.
regardless of if it was first half or second half, Purdue's game plan really didn't change. They were there to throw the ball and try to score as many points as possible. So
Yeah.
I don't think that we should take it with a grain of salt that they looked much better in the second half. Like that to me, they had the long delay. We heard Marcus Freeman talk. We heard them, everyone's going through the iPads, all that stuff. I think some considerable changes were made at halftime. And I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of a lot of the same stuff that we saw in the second half, hopefully. And that's not to say that they were perfect in the second half, but it just sounds like Chris Ash is a bit in over his head with wanting to be, I think, a little too cute at the college level with how much NFL experience that he has.
Right. Which, again, was the argument against Al Golden in that first season. But while there were some micro deficiencies that Al Golden had in that first season, there weren't nearly the explosive plays that we're seeing being given up by Chris Ash's defense. And it's one thing for a Purdue or a Miami to hit not Purdue, a Texas A&M or Miami to hit those kind of explosive plays. It's a completely different thing when a team like Purdue does, quite honestly, because Notre Dame's athletes across the board with just a couple of exceptions were better and should have been able to win more matchups against those guys.
I don't know why they just don't run man and call it good. Just see where you get,
Feels like it's a pretty simple answer, considering everyone in this defense who was here last year did that almost all the time.
I would bring 5 and play man on the backside.
Right.
Get creative with 5-man stunts, and you have 7 guys in coverage. You can still run man. You can still have, some safety help over the top. Like, I really feel like Chris Ash is really overthinking this thing. Like let's just get back to basics, get back to fall camp, because all fall camp, what did we hear about? How good the defense looked.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And then it felt like he got kind of spooked of, oh, we're playing Miami and Carson Beck's an NFL quarterback. And, I need to switch things up and be kind of more multiple and be more complex. It's like, I would rather err on a team beating us with what we're good at before we start kind of overreacting and coming up with solutions to problems that aren't there yet.
Exactly. We'll take a timeout. We've got more mailbag questions coming up. Notre Dame football midweek mailbag. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat. Get your questions in the YouTube chat, and we will answer them for you on today's show. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Notre Dame football mailbag day on the show, answering questions submitted by listeners either in the YouTube chat at Irish Breakdown's YouTube channel or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel, as well as IB's Champions Lounge. And there was a comment in here from David, Jesse, on some of your last comments. Give Jesse the $1 million that Ash is probably getting paid.
Well, I would
sign you up. Ready to go.
Make me an analyst or something.
I don't think that. Well, never mind. So this one is from Tej. You've mentioned Al Golden prided his defense in neutralizing an opponent's strength, specifically by shutting down their go-to plays and core offensive concepts. Thinking from his perspective, what do you believe would be the key things he'd focus on limiting against Arkansas? What aspects of their offense would he most want to take away? Well, based on what I've seen of Arkansas, I watched a lot of the Ole Miss game from a couple of weeks ago and some other stuff. Like Taylon Green, their quarterback, he's their leading rusher, one. And because he runs so much, you see teams play zone against him, and he's fairly patient. Like if you just sit there and play soft zone and give their receivers holes to sit down in, he will pick you apart and move the ball that way. And then, once you maybe get a little bit more aggressive, like they were able to take advantage of Ole Miss anyway by him hitting some run plays. They'll take a lot of underneath stuff. I mean, it just comes down to you've got to be much more disruptive up front and find ways to get him uncomfortable and not just let him sit there in the pocket, because even though he's a runner, he's completing around 65% of his passes, and he is patient enough to pick you apart. You've just got to make him uncomfortable and fool him with some things, it's like, even if you're playing zone, which makes sense against a dual threat quarterback, you've still got to, you can't just come with, your generic, if you even want to call them zone blitzes. Like you can't just drop a guy up. Okay. Say okay, Donovan Hines, you're going to cover, this space over here. You've got to mix up getting different guys dropping onto the running back specifically or onto the tight end specifically. Find ways to confuse him, I think, and disrupt him. I think that's the biggest thing to me. What do you think, Jess?
I mean, I know this sounds like, oh yeah, they should do that every game. But, when I think of a quarterback with a lot of arm talent and a lot of ability to extend the pocket, extend plays with his legs, I just think of Caleb Williams and what Notre Dame did to him, in his last year when they just completely tormented him at Notre Dame and he threw the interceptions. Like a lot, I'm going to reiterate a lot of what you were saying. Marcus Freeman says they don't want to spy. And to me, that's a really good option because you don't want to just waste a defender for a what
and
if.
Ole Miss did look like they were spying on him with a linebacker quite a bit from what I saw. So again, as you just said, you're wasting a defender when you're doing that. I would rather send that guy and try to get pressure on the quarterback rather than just sit back and play read react with a spy.
Yeah, I think the number one thing comes down to is pressure. But pressure is hard because you have to keep lane integrity. You can't fly up the field. You have to set on the line of scrimmage. You want Taylon Green, instead of going sideways, you want him trying to step up and through into the pocket, into the teeth of the defensive line. So, you basically want stunts or pressure where he has to step up, and then you kind of got a late guy looping in that's just going to meet him as he's stepping up. So what can you do to create pressure, to get his timing off, to make, off balance throws, off schedule throws? Like he can't just sit back there 2 flat feet and just throw all day long. You have to do stuff that makes him move the pocket. And also I think the biggest thing is, and it's hard to say this because they're not doing well in coverage right now, but you want to disguise coverage as well, right? You want him to think he's got to look pre-snap and then post-snap. he's got to make a read while also having, pressure bearing down on him at the same time. I think that's where you're going to get your best results.
Yeah. See, like Corey says, you have to contain, and that's true, but you can't spend so much of your focus only on contain. You still have to try to disrupt this guy because, again, he is a patient quarterback. Like for a guy, like he reminds me a little bit, and I'm not saying that, like he's Riley Leonard's twin, but he reminds me a little bit just the way he moves of Riley Leonard because he's tall, he's 6'6", he's a long strider like Riley Leonard, and I've seen some people say he's not fast. I think like Leonard, he's deceptively fast because of the fact that he's a long strider, but to me, he looks more comfortable standing in the pocket. So yes, you have to contain him, but to Jesse's point, you still have to find ways to disrupt him while keeping your contain and not running past him with your pass rush.
I wouldn't be so worried about sacks. I would be worried about pressures, hits.
Just making throws he doesn't want to make.
Yeah, and also hit him while he's throwing, like get him off balance. Like he literally just can't sit back there and make every throw. Like you need to make him make throws at the end of the prime example is, do you remember when I always say his name wrong because he's just got a funky last name. You remember the Louisville quarterback last year that now plays for the Saints? Like when he made he made that crazy rollout play as Drake Bowen drilled him, and he still completed that touchdown in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
You can live with that play. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like you want him to force him into those type of throws. And if he makes a throw and beats you, like you just kind of tip your cap and say, good job. But that's the type of pressure that he needs every down.
Exactly. All right. So another question here from Team OD. What are specific changes you would like to see in the defense to say it is taking steps in the right direction? He says, yes, more exotic blitzes, lineup, press man, etc. So what specific changes do you need to see, Jesse, to say they're going in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of hit it the nail on the head in the question. You want to see creative blitzes. I would maybe why not get some safety blitz in there? Why not get some corner blitzes? Like find ways to get creative. I don't want them to bring 6. I think you need to bring probably 4 or 5 because you don't want to compromise, 2 guys into coverage. But I think any blitz is on is game this week. And I think Notre Dame's bread and butter the last 2 years has been man. And everyone knows they've been a man team, but they still haven't been able to really stop Notre Dame or get them out of, playing man, outside of the national championship, obviously, but you're playing some of the best wide receivers in the country. So to boil it down, I think they need to play man and they need to get creative with pressures off of man.
How do you deal? So do you think that they could get enough pressures and not give up big chunk running plays to Taylon Green if they're playing that much man? You're not concerned about.
Well, you always have a man that's accountable for the quarterback at the end of the day.
Well, but is that your spy? Like what?
Well, no, not necessarily a spy, but someone you can play kind of man over the top and still have a linebacker or 2 dropping into the hole at the middle of the field. And then if he takes off, then it's kind of their responsibility, to rally to the ball. It's going to be a lot of team defense this week, and that's, I think that's the number one thing you want to see is everyone hustling to the ball at all times, because I think this guy has the capability of breaking tackles, extending plays. So you need to rally to the ball and show a tremendous amount of hustle and effort on every play. And I think this is going to be a really good game for these linebackers to rotate because you're going to get guys like KVA, Paremo, Sneed, guys who can really work well in space and close the gap.
Yeah, I mean, KVA and Paremo showed, and they played together a lot in the second half last week. They showed that they can handle that kind of stuff, and it feels like this should be a game for them as well because of the fact that they play in space so well. Andre asks, who are 2 players on offense and defense that must have a significant impact on this game?
offense, I'm going to say Eli Raridan. I think he's got to be able to do. Yeah, he blocked really well last week. I think he's obviously got to block well again this week, and I think he's going to be, a guy that you can lull behind the linebackers because they're going to be so caught up in the run game. And then, I mean, just to be honest with everyone, I think that Jeremiah Love, like, he's got to be the guy every week. I know it sounds cliche, but
that's my answer.
He's the home run hitter. He's the most talented player on offense. And when you get him going, then that means you get Jadarian Price going as well. And we talked about it earlier this week. Like, what a demoralizing feeling when Notre Dame is just hammering, spamming Jeremiah Love, and then all of a sudden, all right, here's Jadarian Price for you, right? So if Jeremiah Love is doing well, that means Jadarian Price is doing well. I think both of those guys at this point work in tandem. So I'm going to go with Raridan and Love.
I mean, I'm going Love and CJ Carr because honestly, I don't feel like, I'm not disregarding Arkansas's defense, but as you've mentioned, like, it is a defense you can run on. And if they can lean on Jeremiah Love, that means they'll also be able to lean on Jadarian Price when they need to. And if you have that and CJ Carr playing at a high level, I think you'll overcome a lot of stuff, and everything else essentially falls into place. So for me, it's Carr and Love. They've been the two best players on offense this season. And, and like right after that, you'd say probably Jordan Faison and then Eli Raridan, but it's Love and Carr to me. Defensively, man, it's just like, I don't know that I can put it on any one player at this point. Someone's just got to be able to step up. As Marcus Freeman has talked about, this whole marriage of the front and the back, some guys up front have got to win some battles and, again, make Taylon Green, the Arkansas quarterback, uncomfortable. And I think that also means probably one of the safeties, whether it is a Don Schuler or Tay Johnson, and Tay Johnson elevated to the top of the depth chart ahead of Jalen Stroman this week. So if it's Schuler and Johnson out there, I'm liking that. I think that one of those two guys has probably got to be a step up guy as well.
Do we have any status on Leonard Moore yet? Is he still going to be?
We do not.
Decision?
He is. He was listed as questionable on the notes.
Like, on paper, Leonard Moore, Tay Johnson, Adon Schuler, and Christian Gray should be a really strong secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the original question, I'm going to go Boubacar Traore, and I'm going to go Adon Schuler. I'm going with Boubacar Traore because they need someone to crash the edge, create pressure, get sacks, get hits. He needs to try to play as close, and this is a hard task, but he needs to try to play like Micah Parsons. Like, you just need a disruptor.
Oh, that's it, huh?
Well, not like, I don't even need the sacks or just disrupt stuff. Like, just be back there, being a disruption. And then I'm going to go Adon Schuler in the safety in the secondary because I think he needs to have an impact in coverage, but he also needs to have an impact coming downhill and finishing plays, whether that's, tackling the quarterback, blitzing, securing the perimeter, closing the edge type situation. So those are my two guys, Boubacar Traore and Adon Schuler.
All right. Josh says whoever the will is needs to be impactful. I mean, the linebackers have got to be more impactful than what we've seen from them so far, whoever the linebackers are. So far,
hard to do when teams are just airing the ball out.
No, it's fair, but it's not like they've just abandoned the run game either. Like, all of these teams have run against Notre Dame. Like, I think what was the count? 28 run plays by Purdue last week.
My least favorite games in high school is when we played Elkhart Central because they just had like wide receiver. They basically just threw the ball every play, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do here? I'm dropping to the same hook and curl zone every play.
Right. But again, Chris Ash likes to blitz those linebackers, so finding some ways to actually utilize them and blitz them appropriately would be good as well, because you've got some guys who can do some of that kind of stuff. Let's take our final timeout of this hour, and we're back with more Mailbag, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rolling on through the 5 o'clock hour, Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers with Jesse Stiers. Trevor Trowbridge is going to be in for Rapid Fire in hour number 2. Some more questions in today's mailbag show from Played Like a Champion today. 1, how many hours will a stubborn man patiently wait in an emergency room with acute appendicitis before crying havoc and letting slip the dogs of war, asking for a friend I was concerned about? Of course, he is referring to Vince. The answer to that question is at least 4 hours, from what I understand. He would be willing to do it. You got to do what you got to do with that ER.
Yeah, I honestly,
I think your mic might be up a little bit hot. I don't know if you did something there. Now you're on mute. Still muted.
Are we back?
I hope so.
I don't know how Vince did it. I've heard that this appendicitis stuff is like extremely painful. I had a friend in college who like his ruptured and he had to go to the emergency room and get it taken out immediately. I've talked to, 2 other friends who have gone through it. They all talk about it being like the worst pain. And
I've never gone through it. I will say that I used it as an excuse once in college. I made it up. I'll just lay it out there right now. It bought me some time to get something turned in that I didn't have ready to go. So shame on me, I know, but
everyone's used an excuse like that before.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Football question from Scott. Scale of 1 to 10. How likely is Notre Dame's defense to improve quickly enough to play at a level for Notre Dame to make a run at the national championship? Let's say a 1 is not likely at all, and the defense will cost Notre Dame at least 1 to 2 more games, while 10 is certain that Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash will turn this thing around this season.
Oh, man, this is a tough question. I mean, like last year setting the bar of what a national championship defense looks like. I honestly have to go at this point like a 5 or 6 out of 10. Like I would be more positive if we've seen more positive signs, but I feel like we haven't seen any growth from game 1 to game 3.
Yeah.
It just all looks like the same thing. I honestly believe that this week is the most telling week of the season.
I agree with that.
And I'm not trying to be dramatic or, cliche, but we've seen the same problems week 1 through week 3. We've seen Marcus Freeman talk about it mid-game, post-game. We've seen him talk about it at the Monday press conference. At what point do we see an actual change? And if it doesn't happen this week, then when is it really going to happen? Because you've known about these problems for a month now. You even had a bye week in between Miami and Texas A&M, and nothing really changed. So
it got worse. Yeah,
it got worse. So like, I honestly have to be at a 5 on this point. Like there's a 50-50 shot, but I think this week is a really important week. Like if we see the same problems, we might as well just pack it up and be happy with a 9-3 season and, a Pop-Tart bowl against someone.
I mean, that's the direction it's pointing in right now. And that might be best case is the Pop-Tart bowl if things don't change. But I agree with everything that you said. If we're going to see change, it's going to be this week. Again, it's going to be against an opponent that averages 500 yards of offense per game. So it's not like it's an easy task, but so my confidence level is a 3.5 tops right now. This is the line in the sand to me, to your point. Like if it's not going to change at all this weekend, I think largely they are who they are, and it's just going to be a roller coaster they're going to have to ride, and they're going to have to do it on the backs of the offense. And that's just what it's going to be. I think that's where it is right now.
Listen, people, my blood pressure can't handle doing this every Saturday and Sunday. I'm watching a carbon copy of the same thing.
This is what people still don't fully grasp, because, and I know people get tired of us talking about the Dallas Cowboys, but literally I was listening to some Cowboys radio podcast this morning, And they are talking about the exact same things with the Dallas Cowboys offense that we're talking about here. Like too much zone defense, too much soft defense, too many explosive plays.
Not enough pressure.
More man-to-man, not enough pressure, all these different things. Would you make a change at defensive coordinator during the season? Everything that's going on. And so we are literally, from a defensive standpoint, if you watch Notre Dame on Saturday and you watch the Cowboys on Sunday or Monday, depending on when they're playing, you're watching the exact same thing. You're watching the same games play out every week. The difference being last week is when the Cowboys should have been able to use their offense to exploit a bad Bears defense. They weren't able to weren't able to do it. But that's a completely different story. But we are we're watching the same thing Saturday and back-to-back days every week so far, and it's depressing. Domer Grizz, inserting Golden and Faremo was a big boost to the defense last week. Are there any more personnel changes you think would elevate this team?
No, and I do think that Faremo and Golden were a big boost last week. Getting young guys rep, they bring energy, they have speed, athleticism. I feel like just at this point we've seen kind of everyone on defense, right? Like who haven't we seen on defense besides maybe some like fourth string defensive linemen at this point? Like we've seen kind of the full arsenal. So I don't necessarily think it's personnel changes. It might be more or less how you're divvying up those reps. Like is Faremo getting a bigger piece of the pie now? Is Golden getting a bigger piece of the pie now? I think that's what you have to look at, is what the rep share kind of looks like.
And Tay Johnson, is Tay Johnson getting a bigger piece of the pie now, especially if he does stay at the top of the depth chart and he's the starter? I think that was something significant. The fact that he, on the depth chart anyway, was moved to number 1 and Jalen Stroman was moved to number 2 at safety. So you've got the potential of Schuler and Johnson starting back there. That could make some difference. But I agree, it's largely not a personnel thing. And I hate to sound like Marcus Freeman is like, if they're going to keep playing with the same structure they've been playing, they have to find a way to play it better. Like, barring that, they just have to play with a little bit different style, a more aggressive style that we know that they can play, but for whatever reason, they have been reluctant to do this year. Josh asks, if Moore is ready to go, do you think switching him and Gray to opposite sides would help? Gray seems to be better at boundary than field, even though he's the shorter of the two.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know.
Gray did play better last week when they moved him over there because of the fact that Moore was out. And Moore is obviously the better of the two, so it's worth looking at. Maybe, like, depending on how much Moore was able to practice this week, maybe that's something they gave a shot. And remember, Marcus Freeman did say they are open to having Moore shadow the other team's best receiver, even though there are some pros and cons to that. But that might be worth a shot. They have flip-flop guys before, and it has paid off in the past. To that point, though, Scott L. Esquire says on defense, when we were talking about the two guys, he says he's going with Zachary in his role as Christian Gray's backup. Based solely on what we've seen in games, he thinks Christian's shoulder is bothering him, and Petrino's going to exploit it. Christian Gray does have a banged-up shoulder, and like when you look at that play against Texas A&M where he was completely unwilling to make a tackle when Craver had the 86-yard touchdown, that there was something to that, and that's kind of what's part of what's so depressing is, like, it's game 4. You're going into game 4 and you've already got so many of these guys in the secondary who are already banged up, but you got to make do with what you've got at this point. ND Forever 72, level of confidence. We actually see a significant change in defensive play calling, similar to what we saw more of in the second half against Purdue. I'll put this at a 6. How about a 6-7? Am I using that right? Like, is that?
I'll go with an 8 because I do think there was an emphasis on it, and there were direct results. Like there was very obvious feedback and input from Marcus Freeman, and I'll go out on a limb and say I trust him more than Chris Ash in terms of knowing his personnel and defense at this point.
I agree. I mean, I hope we continue to see some more of the things that we saw in the second half against Purdue. Level of confidence, Jaden Greathouse makes an impact in the passing game this week. 3 to 4 catches, at least a possible touchdown. I'll go a little above average at a 6. It just feels like at some point he's going to have to be a factor in the offense. And, again, you'd be going off script at this point if you actually did look for him, a little bit earlier and more often. So I'll say a 6. How about you?
I will go with 8 again. I feel like he's just kind of due, and it feels like he's bound to have a game. And we know that, Arkansas's defense is going to give up plays and points just like Notre Dame's defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Greathouse mixes in to that this week.
Final one from Thunderstruck 111. Jabron Payne and Aeneas Williams, have they played at all this year? And if not, what do you see as the issue? Running back shelf life is very short. You would think we have more of a rotation. Before Jabron's injury last season, he was the third down back. Thoughts? That was also a different running back coach.
Yeah.
Basically, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are the two best running backs on the team. And
there's just a different philosophy this year.
Yeah, exactly. And Nolan James has elevated in front of Jabron Payne on the depth chart as well. So I don't see that changing anytime soon.
I don't mind. You have Price and Love. Having 2 backs is better than 1 back in terms of divvying up the load. So I think those guys are perfectly fine managing the load that they're at right now.
Yeah. Aeneas Williams did get some snaps last week because, he got in toward the end when Kenny Minchie was in and stuff like that. Nolan James did as well. But I don't think we're going to beyond if the game is still tightly contested, I don't think we're going to see anyone other than Love and Price most of this year. I think that's just the way it's going to go. And I've got no problem with that because they are clearly 2 of the best running backs in the entire nation. Jesse, appreciate you jumping in. We'll see what happens with Vince later this week. Fingers crossed that Vinny D is back in action soon. But Trevor Trowbridge is coming in for hour number 2 of the show. Jess, good luck with your volleyball. Do your slider pose out there. Get it on.
All right. We'll bring back some hardware just for you.
All right. Sounds good. Hour number 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com is coming up, and that means rapid fire. It's just around the corner. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, and that can mean only one thing. Rapid fire time, and my man Trevor Trowbridge is in to rapidly do it. How are you tonight, Trevor?
I'm good, man. Back-to-back shows
I
on
know.
IB Nation Sport. Look at us. Man, this has got to be good juju. I think if Notre Dame wins this weekend down in Fayetteville, I think we're going to have to do multiple shows a week. I'm a superstitious guy.
I think maybe so. I mean, mixing it up like this, maybe that's just the thing to get the whole thing kickstarted. Who knows?
Maybe.
I know.
Maybe.
I know. All right, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, as always, because it is rapid fire, so that means multiple topics for you. Fill in the blank. Jeremiah Love's helmet came off a few times in the Texas A&M game. He was asked about that at his media session this week. It's blank that he said this about that, quote, people becoming, trying to rip it off. They're trying to do whatever they can to take me out of the game, trying to blow up my knees, all that. The helmet situation was taken care of.
Man, I mean, fill in the blank. That's Bush League. Come on, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's to be expected when you have a high-octane player like Jeremiah Love. I'm sure that players like Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams can also attest that when players get the opportunity to take him down, they with a little bit more force than what they would somebody else. But I think that's a little Bush League trying to take somebody out of the game. That's me personally. But Sean, you know me, I'm an offensive guy.
No, I mean, it's very Bush League. I mean, like pulling the helmet off is one thing because you do have to go off the field for at least one play. I mean, that's like Bush League, but like going after a guy's knees. I mean, you would think that players would have a little bit more respect than that because it's literally like, it feels like the one universal thing that players respect is the injury thing. That's why you see the other team go down on a knee, when someone from the other team is injured. Like no one, they all know that they're laying their bodies on the line all the time. So to hear that guys are intentionally going after his knees, like that's an obvious line being crossed out there. Like you can respect his ability and all that kind of stuff and not want him in the game, but like to do that kind of stuff is just the lowest of low. And you would hope that maybe, you as a coach, you don't want to be seen as sort of a whiner or those kind of things, I think, but you do, there are obviously ways you can approach officials before the game and say, look, this kind of stuff has been going on. Can you keep an eye on this tonight?
Yeah, I think the most disheartening thing about it is I think it disrespects the game of football a little bit when you have other players, because look, everybody's fighting the same fight. Every premier college athlete is trying to make it up to the NFL to where they can live out their lifelong dream of playing in the league. And if somebody's going to try to take it upon themselves to ruin somebody else's for a game, I can't get on board with that, man. I'm not there.
I can't either. That's just, again, it's not fathomable. I remember we had a guy in high school who was, kind of the stud, and he went on to play at a Division I school and all that. And like some of that stuff was going on with him at the bottom of piles. Guys are sitting there hanging on his legs and trying to twist his knees and do stuff like that. It's like that kind of stuff unfortunately happens at the bottom of piles all the time. But again, you would hope that as a player at that level, at the Power 4 level, everyone's got aspirations. Everyone's got career aspirations, long-term goals, and all that kind of stuff. You don't want someone doing that to you, so you would hope that you wouldn't be doing that to somebody else. But maybe that's just too pie in the sky thinking. I don't know.
You're too nice of a guy, Sean. Come on.
I guess so.
Jeez.
That's why we're sitting here talking about it. We never made it, right? It's only because of that. It's not because we weren't athletically challenged to,
Yeah. It's not because I'm 6 foot tall with shoes on and ran a 5.4 40. That's definitely not the reason. It's because our mentality wasn't there, Sean.
That's right. We just weren't mean enough. Double fill in the blank. If Texas A&M quarterback Marcel Reed is blank, Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green is blank.
Oh gosh. I might go a little bit different a direction with this. I don't know if I've ever done a double fill in the blank, Sean. This is fun.
First time for everything, baby.
I guess so, man. I guess so. I'll say this. If Marcel Reed is able to beat Notre Dame, then Taylon Green is also able to beat Notre Dame. I've seen some stuff, some very contradicting things about, Texas A&M's team overall supporting cast was better. I as a whole team, I would tend to believe that as well. Arkansas had to replace their top 5 pass catchers from a season ago. There's some people that still aren't fully bought into Taylor Green, but I listened to the first segment of this show, man. We talked a lot about Notre Dame's defense. And if Marcel Reed is able to throw for 360 passing yards while completing under 50% of his passes, Taylor Green is absolutely able to do the same thing at 6'6", 235.
That's exactly right. Like, if we thought Marcel Reed was a mobile dual threat quarterback, Taylor Green is that on steroids, to borrow, a sports cliche. He is another level. And, as I said, he reminds me a little bit of Riley Leonard, just with the long strides and the running ability, but he looks more comfortable in the pocket. If you just sit there and play this soft zone that Chris Ash has been playing through these first few games, Taylor Green has shown the ability to be able to sit there and complete the passes and pick you apart. You can't just let him stand back there and be comfortable. Between the two quarters, like Marcel Reed is good, but I think Taylor Green is a completely different level. This guy is like Marcel Reed really only hurt Notre Dame once or twice with his legs. Green has the ability to do that a half dozen times or more, and really he's shown that all it takes is one big explosive play, and it can be a game-changing play with his legs.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's the team's leading rusher. Now, Marcel Reed, I believe, was the team's leading rusher for A&M when they came to South Bend. But point still being, like, Notre Dame's going to have to find some way to speed him up on defense, whether that's speeding up his process, post-snap switches with your coverage, or getting some sort of a pass rush on him. But like you guys talked about before, got to stay disciplined in your pass rushing lanes or he's going to take off and hurt you with his legs.
That's exactly it. And that's always the bind that a true dual threat guy can put you in, but they've just got to find ways to make him uncomfortable, I think is the biggest thing. Carlos Garza in the YouTube chat asks, if we see Notre Dame give up more than 35 points this week, do you think we'll see a significant change? I mean, have we seen a significant change through 3 games?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Carlos, if I'm giving my realistic answer, I think it's no. I think it also depends on if they win. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's one thing to say Notre Dame beat Purdue, a Power 4 team from the Big Ten with a new head coach and a completely new team by 26 points at home. That's one thing. On the other hand, you can also say they won by 26, but they scored 56. This is a defense that allowed 30 points at home to Purdue and 41 points at home. In 2 weeks at home, you've given up 71 points. That's not great, especially for the Notre Dame standard. So I think the outcome is also going to dictate what happens with this defense. If Notre Dame loses and their defense gives up more than 35 points, I think that Marcus Freeman and Pete Bavacco would be at a spot where they might have to make a change, or else nothing is going to change moving forward.
Because you're 1-3 at that point. Look at this from the outside. You're 1-3 at that point. You're now eliminated from college football playoff contention. Yeah. You're not going to make it in with a 9-3 record, and it would be foolish to think you even really have a realistic chance of being 9-3 if you lose that game, because I think that virtually all but maybe 2 or 3 games are all going to be up for grabs at that point if you lose another game like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carlos, in short, my answer is regardless of win or lose, should there be? I think so. Will there be? I think it depends on the outcome of the game.
I do too, because you can rationalize, just like last week. At least we won the game. All we need is 1 point more to win the game, and that kind of stuff. So you can rationalize and write some of that stuff off. But you lose the game, and we're in a place that after last year, none of us thought we would be at this point this year. And there's no reason they should be at this point. But if you lose the game and you're giving up those kind of points, 35 plus points, Marcus Freeman has talked about, challenge everything. And at that point, there's a lot that he's got to challenge that he won't have challenged, I don't think, if you're in a spot where you lose the game and you give up 35 again, 35 plus again.
Agreed.
There was a question we talked in the first hour about the running backs. Justin was asking, is Jabron Payne behind Nolan James Jr.? He is. James has been listed as the number 3 running back the last couple of weeks. And I think part of that is due to the elbow injury that Aeneas Williams has, but he has been ahead of Jabron Payne on the depth chart all season long. So James has been up there. Like, I think you can probably consider Williams and James probably like co-3s maybe at this point, but Jabron Payne is number 5 on the chart behind all those guys right now.
Yeah, I think the elbow injury for Aeneas Williams plays a factor in that too. I agree.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. Notre Dame offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock was asked about the Wildcat package that he used against Texas A&M and if Notre Dame might use a Kenny Minchey package for short yardage situations instead. He says they've talked about exploring something that would involve Minchey in the future. Are you in or out on a Kenny Minchey package versus the Wildcat package, Trevor?
Big picture, if it's going to help the team succeed and help Notre Dame win on Saturday, then yeah, I'm absolutely all for it. But at the end of the day, I go back to what I've talked about and stayed consistent with all offseason and so far through the first couple of weeks of the regular season is Kenny Minchey as a runner doesn't give you anything additional that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams or Nolan James or Jabron Payne don't give you. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. Now, if there's things that you want to do schematically, sure, but having Kenny Minchey come in and take direct snaps is not the Wildcat. That's just him taking a shotgun snap. Like that's just your backup quarterback coming in and taking a snap.
Right. You get a backup quarterback with a little bit more running ability compared to CJ Carr, and maybe you're not as worried about your backup quarterback taking a shot as you would be with CJ Carr, because like look at the Miami game and look how the last 2 games have played out. They've obviously not run Carr nearly, definitely designed stuff. I don't think we've seen anything designed. He has scrambled a couple of times. The one thing I like about a Minchey package versus the specific Wildcat package that we saw, and Denbrock did say the reason they put that in, that specific Wildcat package, was because of some looks that Mike Elko was giving against certain runs, so they thought that would give them something. And like the majority of time it did. Did it get stopped a couple times? Yeah, but the majority of the time it did what it was supposed to. I just kind of like the idea of having a quarterback with some running ability and a Jeremiah Love in the backfield, as opposed to just Jeremiah Love doing the specific Wildcat stuff that we saw against A&M. Like, you're not just completely tipping, okay, here's what's coming. There's still at least some different options on the table if you have a quarterback back there.
No, I agree. I mean, it makes the defense account and has to add an extra hat in the box to account for a mobile quarterback. And I mean, strong case in point could be, look, I mean, Memphis had a lot of success running the football. Their mobile quarterback had a lot to do with that. So
right.
Would I be surprised if I saw something like that this week? No, I'm not.
He's Trevor Trowbridge. I'm Sean Stiers. It's Rapid Fire on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat. After this timeout, we've got more topics coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues on this Wednesday. Mailbag day on the show. We answered a bunch of listener questions in the first hour. This hour, of course, is rapid fire, is what it is as we go through a lot of different topics. Trevor, some feedback on this whole Wildcat versus Kenny Minchie stuff. So Josh says, we were talking about, do we like the Wildcat package? Would we prefer a Kenny Minchie package instead? Josh is saying that the Wildcat guy could pass out of it where they're expecting a run. My question there would be, do you really want to rely on Jeremiah Love throwing the football? I know he said he could throw the football. I would just rather have a quarterback actually throwing the football than relying on a running back making some kind of throw.
Yeah, and Josh, I mean, if you're talking about Kenny Minchie passing out of the Wildcat, then I would just bring him in and have him throw passes. I mean, it's just one of those where it's just not needed.
Right. So, I mean, you're going to snap it to Jeremiah Love and then pitch it or hand it to Kenny Minchie and have him throw a pass. That's the benefit of just having a Minchie package where you do have more running threat. They have to respect that, but you've also got Love back there with him, and you have to respect the okay, so Josh says he means Minchie. Well, then that's not really a Wildcat package. Then it's just Kenny Minchie in a Kenny Minchie package.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is, like, if between the two, I would rather see a Minchie package where you've got Minchie and Love out there together, where you still have to respect the pass and the potential run of the quarterback. Stymie says, I know it's a crazy thought, but hear me out. Instead of the Wildcat or a Kenny package, what if, and it's a big if, but what if CJ handed it off to Love or Price instead? I know it's crazy, but mull it over. Dripping with sarcasm, but thank you, Stymie. It's still a very good point.
Yeah, you know what, Stymie? I don't think you're too far off there, buddy. I mean, it's almost like when the defense brings more than a four-man pressure, they get pressure. So,
yeah.
Crazy thoughts all around.
And again, I wonder how much this Wildcat comes up again, because as again Mike Denbrock said at in his media session yesterday, they added this Wildcat look because of specific things they were seeing from Mike Elko's defense. So it sounds like it'll probably be dependent upon what they see from other defenses, and if they think that kind of thing would be the look that they need to run it. I would just hope that if they do run Wildcat again, it's not just straight put Jeremiah Love back there, stagnant, everybody's just standing at the line of scrimmage. Add some motion to it. Jordan Faison, the threat of Jordan Faison doing a jet sweep, or whatever, whoever, Will Paulings, those kind of guys. Like, get the defense's eyes shifting and moving in different directions and things like that. I think that would be very beneficial to it.
We talked about it yesterday, Sean. I'd rather see a lot more 21 personnel with Love and Price on the field at the same time than I would a package with another backup or a running package for this guy. I'd rather see more 21 personnel.
Yep, I would be down with that. I could agree with that for sure. So, Trevor, Shane Beamer is one of the first names that has popped up for the Virginia Tech opening because of the fact, obviously, he grew up in Blacksburg. Well, his dad, Frank, was the head coach there and put Virginia Tech on the map. My question would be, if you're Beamer, which is more attractive, staying at South Carolina in the SEC or going back to his roots in Blacksburg in the ACC at Virginia Tech?
I think this is one of those where you don't really have a wrong answer, depending on, like, if you're Shane Beamer, I think you can go either way, and I would understand the decision either way. In the Any Given Saturday documentary, he talked a lot about how, he wanted to make a name for himself at South Carolina. He didn't want to be Frank Beamer's son. He wanted to be Shane Beamer at South Carolina, and I respect that. I understand that completely. But also, you kind of talk about different level of competition in the ACC than in the SEC. And you do have that kind of lineage drawing you back to Virginia Tech. So when I look at that situation, Sean, I just think it's kind of a win-win regardless of which one he decides to go with.
Yeah, I understand your line of thinking. I look at this as like Shane Beamer has already found out at South Carolina very quickly this year that sustaining success at a mid-tier SEC, mid to lower tier SEC program is very hard. They've already lost
Yeah.
twice. They got thumped by Vanderbilt, and they also lost to Missouri in back-to-back weeks. So it's like college football playoff, that's out of the question now unless you run the table the rest of the way. And, so like the line of thinking that you're saying, I can get behind that, just staying your own man, not going back to that. But at the same time, you would be sort of seen as, the prince returning, home and all that kind of thing. And you're at a place like Virginia Tech in the ACC where, let's face it, I think that there's a lot more ceiling year in and year out at a place like Virginia Tech in the ACC as opposed to South Carolina in the SEC. So I would lean a little bit more toward the Virginia Tech, even though again there are its own challenges there because of where you're located. It's a remote spot. It's not a really big town, so there are things that are going to come with that as well. But I mean, neither one of them is the high ceiling destination, I guess.
No, I think that's totally fair. I mean, in the ACC, you have to look. Now would be the prime time to get a team together in the ACC with Clemson falling off the way that they have. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I mean, you got to ask yourself something. What do you think is more likely? Georgia sustained success in the SEC, or Miami runs the table and wins their first ACC championship ever? You know what I mean? And then continuously does that. So, no, that's a fair point. It's a very fair point.
So there are several Big Ten games this season, like Michigan State at USC last weekend that kicked off at 11 p.m. Eastern time. This was in Los Angeles where it's 8 o'clock, but it's 11 p.m. Eastern time when they're kicking off. Other recent games like Boston College at Stanford and Minnesota at Cal kicked off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. So Trevor, are these late kick times fair or foul for the road teams in these equations?
Oh, good. I mean, it's foul. I mean, Sean, it's almost like, and hear me out here, it's almost like when you try to form super conferences and you add in a team that is multiple time zones away, somebody's going to be inconvenienced. Isn't that wild? Yeah. No, that's terrible. I mean, now, mind you, I was still up on Saturday. We were still doing the post-game show Saturday at 11 p.m.
That's true. You guys were still kicking it strong at that point.
We were just getting started, baby. I mean, we were getting kicked off. But no, man, I mean, I hate it. I hate the fact that they're that late.
I mean, now remember, not all of these are conference games. Like Minnesota at Cal, that's a non-conference game, but it's 10:30 p.m. Boston College at Stanford. You're literally talking about as far as you can go on the East Coast to the West Coast, BC and Stanford. And I heard the guy who does the Boston College play-by-play, I heard him the week at like a couple days later. They got home at 9 a.m. in Boston after playing at Stanford, 10:30 p.m. on the Eastern time. They got home at 9 a.m. Sunday. Are you telling me that that's good for players? Like, at the very least, if you're going to do that, you could do it Friday night where you've got a little bit more cushion, so you give these players a little bit more time to recover. I get ESPN is, it's basically to them, it's the E in ESPN. It's the entertainment part. They're putting on a show. It is programming for the masses. But like Michigan State at USC at 11 p.m. Again, it's middle of the country, so it's not quite as far as BC, but they probably, depending on what their charter was like, they probably didn't get home a whole lot earlier than 9 a.m., maybe 6 or 7 a.m., something like that. You can't tell me, and I get the sarcasm that you're talking about, and I completely agree with it. It is obviously not good, but if you're going to have these late night games, at least try to make it so that the teams involved are separated maybe by one time zone instead of 3 time zones,
Yeah, I think that would be the smart move. I mean, look, I hear you about the entertainment aspect, but look, you got to make sure that at least more than 50% of the country is going to be able to tune in and watch it live if we're going to consider it, entertainment. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, look, one of the benefits, Notre Dame travels out and they've played teams all across the country before in prime time for, when they go out and face USC at night in the Coliseum. But that's 5 p.m. their time. It's 8 p.m. our time, so I understand that. But 11 p.m. Eastern time, that's late, man. That is late.
Stymie said or is it, if I can get it in there, USC played at 9 a.m. at Purdue, right? I don't think so. I think that was a noon game. I think that was maybe supposed to be a noon game. It was 9 a.m.
Well, I think he's saying like 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Angeles
local time.
Yeah.
Well, there's not much you can do. Like the time zone that you're in, like the NFL is playing these games in Europe. And even when some of these college teams obviously go to England or Ireland or whatever, like the Pacific time zone, like you're getting up at 6, 7 a.m. to watch those games. 9 a.m. I would still rather have 9 a.m. than 11 p.m. because, the other part of this is your fan bases that are on the East Coast, like Boston College playing at Stanford at 10:30 p.m., for example. So you're asking the Boston market, anyone interested in BC football, I realize it's not a huge, interest in BC football, but you're asking them to stay up until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., by the time it's all said and done. Michigan State in the Eastern time zone, like same thing. You're asking them to stay up until 2 a.m. by the time this game is over with. Ditto with Minnesota, even though that's Central time zone. So it's, only 1 hour difference. But yeah, it is just completely unfair to everybody involved, from the players who have to make this travel, as well as the fan bases who are trying to follow their teams with these extremely late kickoffs.
Yeah, it's extremely late. But I'll tell you what, if I lived out on the West Coast, it wouldn't be such a bad thing waking up at 9 a.m. to just college football on the TV.
I know.
Though. That'd be
I lived
sweet.
on the West Coast for a year, and it's awesome to be able to roll out of bed after a night of, whatever you're doing out there. And it's like Saturday, Sunday morning, the games are already on TV by the time you kick out of bed. Like West Coast is perfect. But, again, it's like this is like Michigan State USC. It's perfect background stuff at a sports bar on the East Coast or in the Midwest. But Michigan State players, BC players shouldn't have to suffer, for everyone else's entertainment by getting home at 7, 8, 9 a.m. after you play a game like that, and then have to get yourselves together and then get up and go to class on Monday and roll into practice the next week. But as you said, as you started off with, it's almost like having teams in the same conference on opposite coasts is not a good idea. Who would have thought?
Crazy.
We'll take our final break and then back with a couple more topics to wrap things up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. Oh, we've still got a little bit more time here tonight. Rapid Fire continues. I'm Sean Steyers along with Trevor Trowbridge, knocking them out, setting them up, knocking them down tonight, topic after topic. Fill in the blank, Trevor, the player, coach, or team you feel most differently about right now compared to the start of the season, which feels like a year ago at this point, is blank.
Notre Dame aside, how do you not say Kansas State? I mean, that is a team that I just did not see coming. I mean, the teams in conversation, Kansas State, Clemson, Notre Dame, but I got to go with Kansas State. They were one of the teams in the preseason that I projected them to play for the Big 12 championship. I mean, you go and you lose a close game to Iowa State in Ireland, but you only lose by 3 points. You come back home to North Dakota to play North Dakota, not even North Dakota State, North Dakota. You know, last second game-winning drive to win 38-35. And you lose back-to-back games against Army and Arizona, and Army lost to Tarleton State.
Man.
Yeah, man. Wow.
I mean, obviously they were a ranked team, Kansas State was, and one of the favorites to win the Big 12 this year. I think that's a really good answer. There are a lot of good answers. Like Stymie says Florida State. We didn't, as he said, didn't know what to expect, and they've obviously played pretty well. Looking forward to seeing what happens when they face Miami here on down the line a little bit as Miami ends up playing both of the, the other big state of Florida teams. Clemson didn't see them going 1-3. Notre Dame is a good answer. Like Anthony says, Notre Dame, specifically the defense. Like the big question regarding Notre Dame is what has been the issue. How is Chris Ash going to call a game compared to how Golden called a game? We didn't know that it was going to be this diabolically opposed, like the Al Golden philosophy compared to the Chris Ash philosophy. But look at what you've got. I'm going to go a little bit different route, though, and Irish for Life 99 is singing my tune. Well, he says if Indiana and Notre Dame were to play today, who are you picking? I would probably pick Indiana the way they're playing right now. Now, they still have a lot to prove. Got to go to Iowa, show they can back it up. That was a big game for them last week. They've still got Oregon. They've still got Penn State. So, like the bigger fish are still out there. But I tell you what, I expected some drop-off for Curt Cignetti after what he was able to whip together in year one coming into year two. But there is a complete case that they are even better in year two than they were in year one. I mean, if last week's game against Illinois means anything, they surely are. And he was not afraid to pile it up because I think that he wanted to make a statement because he was a little ticked off that he, had just made the college football playoff and he was compared to Illinois. Like, who the heck is Illinois? What the heck have they ever done? He probably said it in a lot different words behind closed doors. But as of right now, I'm more impressed with Curt Cignetti than I thought I was going to be at this point in the season.
Yeah, I am as well. Indiana's a really good answer for that one. I mean, honestly, I know they're fresh off of a national championship, but I'm also impressed at how quickly Ohio State was able to bounce back from all the attrition that they had.
Yeah.
Both coordinators, 8 starters on defense, 2 new offensive tackles, brand new running back room. You lose Emeka Egbuka and Will Howard. It's impressive, man. It's impressive.
I mean, Joe has the answer. Illinois was completely overrated. And what's crazy is they got so overrated because they beat South Carolina in a bowl game last year. And everyone was like, ooh, South Carolina, just outside the college football playoff picture and all that. And look at where South Carolina is this year. Like, that's what vaulted Illinois' national kind of thought was the fact they finished off the season. And I mean, look, it was a lower tier bowl, and who exactly was playing in that game, I don't know. But I bought into the Illinois hype. Not like overboard like a lot of people, but like a lot of people, I did think that last week's game against Indiana was going to be a lot more competitive than what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Colts quarterback Daniel Jones, of course, was known as Danny Dimes when he was the New York Giants quarterback, but they're calling him Indiana Jones now that he's leading the surprising 3-0 Colts. Which nickname, Trevor, do you like better?
Oh, it's Indiana Jones. For sure. One, I love Indiana Jones. It's one of my favorite movie franchises growing up. But two, I live in Indianapolis, man, and I'd be lying if I said that I was a Colts fan, but it's cool when the teams in the city do well. I mean, the Fever got Caitlin Clark, and then obviously we know the run the Pacers have been on the last 2 years. It makes the city fun, and I was kind of waiting for the Colts to catch back up, and so far, Indiana Jones is kind of doing his thing, man.
I do too. Like, get him a whip. Do they have any posters of him around town yet? Like with one of those hats that Indy used to wear.
Not yet, but I mean, if they go on the road, I think they're on the road this week to play the Rams. I mean, if they go out to LA and beat the Rams and SoFi, come back here, I mean, I might paint one myself. Who knows? I mean, it was like I had never even thought of it. Like coming out of training, like Daniel Jones, the fact that he's in Indianapolis and all that kind of stuff. I don't know who came up with it, but it's the perfect nickname for him, and especially because I think they were calling him that before they even won their third game, and kind of where this thing is right now, it's snowballing. If they can keep it up, you're going to hear more Indiana Jones. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's a lot better nickname than Danny Dimes, honestly. Yep. I do too. I'm big fan of the Indiana Jones nickname. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, do they literally is everyone down there just calling him Indiana Jones? I've forgotten about the fact that you were in the heart of Indianapolis in this.
Oh yeah. I mean, Lucas Oil is, 10 minutes away from the apartment. So, but yeah, okay. I mean, that nickname is alive and well in all the group chats that I'm in, but no, around the city, people call him Indiana Jones, and yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, I want to finish with this. This is a question I've kind of had on the docket. It's kept getting bumped a little bit. This whole Tom Brady controversy. He's obviously Fox's number one analyst. He's a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. There's been, he was sitting in the coach's booth wearing a headset a couple weeks back. Do you think it's time for the NFL to make Brady pick a lane and decide what he's going to do?
I think back to, again, I'll bring up the Indianapolis Colts. Jim Irsay's daughter took over. She's on the sideline. She's wearing headsets. She's around the team all the time. She is not then also going on CBS at 1 p.m.
exactly
to commentate on the games. Now,
doing other people's games, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're Tom Brady and we're talking about Tom Brady and NFL in the same sentence, they kind of just let him do whatever he wants at this point, I would imagine. But me personally, I think that he should pick a lane, either be a broadcaster or be this invested in the organization.
It feels like it to me as well. And I realize Fox isn't going to can him. They're giving him a lot of money. They like to put, it's like from their perspective, I think any publicity is good publicity. I don't know, when you listen to coaches, I don't know how much he's actually influencing the game, but it just feels like if you're going to be one of the faces of Fox Sports, you shouldn't be sitting in a coach's booth during a nationally broadcast, televised game, wearing a headset, hanging out with the coaches. It just feels like, okay, if you want, they're obviously fine with him being an owner. That's fine, but you don't need to, it's just a bad look, I think. Because it says, it basically tells everybody your interests are divided. And I don't think that that's what anybody needs. So I don't know if it's at the point where the NFL needs to, make a move, but it's like, hey, Tom, could you just stay out of the coach's booth, keep the headsets off? I think that would be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. And luckily, I don't really know how many, 4:25 p.m. kickoff games on Fox the Raiders are going to have. So maybe they're just waiting until those paths diverge. But
they play the Bears, though, this week. So
that's true on the 4:25 slot. Okay, well, there we go.
Right. Trevor, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you again soon, my friend.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, absolutely. Appreciate all the questions in the mailbag portion of the show tonight. We've got more, of course, coming up tomorrow. Marcus Freeman's noon Zoom. We'll have some of his comments on the show tomorrow. And, of course, we've got more coming up the rest of the week. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.